Good day and greetings from the Great White North. My name is Prickly Poo and welcome to day 181 of a year of change. Today's documentary is not quite a documentary. I know that I keep sort of pointing to documentaries. I know that we have added quite a few in there. There are a few shows in there as well that are more entertainment than anything else. But this one really sort of deviates from what we've been doing. It's actually a TED Talk. For those of you that have seen those, they're for technology, entertainment, and design, I believe it is. And usually it's, either innovators or entrepreneurs or sometimes celebrities that will get up and do a talk for a half hour or so about a topic that they believe in. And about 5 years ago, Jamie Oliver, who is a chef from the UK, did one. It was for 2010, and it was actually a special talk for something called the TED Prize. And when they first started doing TED Talks back in 2006 or 2007, they would normally award this TED Prize to 3 people each year to sort of fund something that they felt that they believed in, something that would improve our lot in life. And in 2010, they just decided to start awarding it to one person, and the person that they gave it to was Jamie Oliver. So the link that I'm going to actually show you, or the video I'm going to show you, is actually his TED Talk regarding receiving the prize. And he goes into something that we've talked about a number of different times before, and it's basically childhood obesity in general, but childhood obesity specifically. And he touches on a lot of different subjects that we have before. He looks at the added sugar that's still in there, poor nutrition at schools. He looks at the lack of cooking in the home from parents, and really sort of lays it out there. It's going so far as to tell someone right in the audience, your child, like that, your generation, and this pretty much goes for all of us. Our generation is the first generation, really, in a very, very long time, that our children have a lower life expectancy than we do because of obesity, because of how we're feeding them and how we're treating food and how it's just being marketed and how it's being processed and given to them on a daily basis. And he goes into a number of different ways that this can help, like applying this philosophy to schools to sort of get out of that processed food aspect of it. And he does sort of take into account the fact that there needs to be a practical change. He understands, the majority of the decisions that are made from schools and things like that, they're made just from the numbers. If you're going to take money away from funding for a school, where are you going to take it from? Well, the easiest thing immediately is, number one, physical fitness programs. Those have been long gone. And then, school lunch programs, all that stuff. Things that you look at and say you just would deem them unnecessary. So he talks about that. He talks about cooking from home and sharing that knowledge. He shows actually a clip from a show that he did where he's showing vegetables to school children and they don't know what they are. They know that they're vegetables, obviously, but they can't differentiate between a potato or celery or a beet, an eggplant. He's showing them all these different things, and they just simply don't know what they are. And part of you sort of looks at that and says, yes, but if you made it, they probably would. It's unfortunately, when you show a child a potato or a beet, and they really don't know what they are, they assume it's an onion or it's celery. That obviously is some sort of education that has fallen by the wayside. And yes, it's important to give them a traditional education and give them everything that they need that way. But when all they know are burgers and fries and pizza and everything else, it's ridiculous. We talked a while ago, I think we did, that the FDA, I think it was the FDA, had classified pizza as a vegetable because of the toppings, basically, so that counts towards your vegetable count for the day. French fries are considered a vegetable. Like things that just simply aren't. Yes, it comes from a potato, but it doesn't mean that it's a vegetable. Same thing with potato chips and any sort of junk food. You can't just say, it's made from corn, so obviously it's a vegetable. So he does sort of go into a little bit more in depth there. Does a very dramatic revelation of how much extra sugar is in milk at schools, because they aren't drinking just milk, they're drinking chocolate milk and strawberry milk and banana milk and all the other stuff. But it's a very interesting talk. And It's not very long. It's about 20 minutes. He does go over because they do give you a time limit, and he's gone well over. But it's something that I think is, it was very effective, I think, to the audience that he had. He's got, I don't know what you would call it, an endorsement or ambassadorship, an endorsement deal, I'm going to call it that, with a chain of stores in Canada called Sobeys. And they're the grocery stores. It's primarily the one that I go to as well. It's usually when I'm finding all the weird little vegetables that I show you, like the kohlrabi and the chayote and all the other stuff. That's generally where I'm getting it, is from Sobeys. And he sort of started in with them, and I understand that, there is a marketing part of that as well. Let's be realistic. He's not just giving all this money away and saying, there we go, I want to do this out of the goodness of my heart. It is something that he does believe in, though, where he's going in and saying, you don't need to buy the processed foods, you don't need to buy this and this and this. Although, on the other hand, he is also selling, milk jugs for $40 in the store. So there is a money aspect there as well, which kind of takes away from it. But it's, again, one of those things, like, let's be realistic. There's a lot of vilification of, fast food places saying, oh, the evil corporations, that they're trying to kill us and making us fat and everything else. No, they're selling a product, and they know exactly how much fat and sugar and salt to put in that product to make it the most profitable, so that people will buy it and that we will continue to eat it. It's supply and demand. The demand is there, so yes, they're going to keep tweaking it until they find that perfect recipe, and that's what they're going to market to us. And we're free to say yes, we're free to say no. Nothing is ever presented to us saying you have to eat this. Yes, it's very, very difficult to do, but it's not really their fault. So it's very easy to sort of point fingers and say, well, this is their fault because they aren't doing this and they aren't doing that. The labeling thing, I do agree with. He does bring this up as well, and we talked about this, that the percentage, the daily recommended allowance for sugar was fought tooth and nail by sugar lobbyists to not have it on the nutrition labels. Fat is iffy as well. We've talked about that. Anything below 0.5 grams of trans fat, they can just say 0. So there are certain things that you will look at and say, yes, obviously it's shady. But these are facts that you can look up. These aren't things that are just like sort of sinister, what's the word I was looking for? Conspiracy theories. Serial theories. I don't know where that was coming from. But I think he genuinely does want to improve things. Like, aside from the deals that he has with the grocery store and, the money that he gets from TV shows and everything else, deep down I think there is a genuine desire to improve things. Just to get people so that, we're not necessarily in the perfect state of health, but we're healthier than we are. He did meet some people when he was making his past show, and he talks about this in the talk as well. There are kids that haven't even hit grade 1 yet, and they're already obese. There are kids that haven't hit their teens. They still have another 6 or 7 years of growth, and they're heavier than I was at my heaviest at 325. So, it does affect everyone. We've got 2/3 of the country right now is obese or overweight. We talked about this a while ago, that the obesity is now actually more than those that are overweight. So it's not just simply a matter of saying, well, we've put on a few pounds. The vast majority of us have surpassed that, and we've gotten into obesity and morbid obesity and everything else. He does sort of also bring up something that we started working on a few weeks ago, getting away from a lot of the processed foods that we buy. Again, not to say, processed foods are evil, but we know there are so many things that they put in there, just whether it's to preserve them, to make them taste better, because it's cheap. It's very efficient. It's very effective because we still buy them. And comparing that with purchasing things and cooking at home, just the nutritional value and cutting out the salt and the sugar and the fat and everything else, there's just no contest. And I understand that, for a lot of us, you look at it, I have the luxury of not having kids. I can cook. I can take my time if I need to. But 20 minutes cooking, throwing a pizza in the oven is the same as 20 minutes actually preparing a meal. And for those of you that are out there that are saying, oh, you just don't understand because you get home and you're exhausted and you just want to get everything taken care of. Well, unfortunately, as a parent, that is your responsibility. You have to stay tired. And if it means adding another 10 or 15 years onto your kids' lives and of preventing them from being bullied in school and having to go to the hospital every few years and contracting, heart disease and diabetes and everything else, if you're only getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night now, then you know what? You've got to deal with having only 3 or 4. And take that extra hour and do something for your kids. And I know it's much easier said than done. There are some of you that are out there that are just burning the candle at both ends. Whoever gets home first, have them be designated to cook the meal. If you're a single parent, you're going to have to do without that. Your sleep schedule is completely fucked now as it is. You're going to have to sacrifice a little bit more just to put that extra effort in to make sure that your kids have a higher standard of life than they do now. And I'm not going to go off on a rant. Well, I just sort of did, but I'm not going to lecture again because I do this all the time. But his talk was very, very good, very informative. It's only about 20 minutes long or so. So I urge you to go up and take a look. I'll put it into the recommended viewing as well. You can go up to the TED Talks website if you want to get a little bit more information on it. And it's 5 years old now, but you can still do something. He does talk about as well the current, or the 5 years ago in 2010. It talks about how much money actually was spent on obesity for the healthcare system, and he said, within 10 years it's going to be double that. Well, here we are 5 years later, and we already know that it already doubled. So even then, with him being dramatic and saying in 10 years you're going to be spending $300 million a year, or $300 billion a year, we've hit that in 2015. So it's just going to get worse. And everyone always says, well, we've reached a tipping point. I think we've already gone past it. It's far too late. We can do things individually for ourselves, but for this generation, we've pretty much done the damage. The key is to go on to the next one, your kids, that instead of having them die 10 or 15 or 20 years earlier than you will, and having a shortened lifespan because of their diet, you can do something so that you can give them a better quality of life, that they won't be spending the last few years of their life in the hospital, or God forbid, having a heart attack on the playground, which has happened. We have kids that are still in high school that are having coronaries when they're outside because they just simply don't, their body can't take it. And I'm one of them. I haven't had a heart attack, but I'm one of them that the mass that I have is too much for my frame. That's why our joints hurt. That's why our muscles hurt. That's why we have so many problems. And we're spreading that onto kids. So, anyway, I've gone a little too far so far. So go up, take a look at his talk. It's very informative. There's a couple of little dramatic moments in there, but you understand there is that showmanship portion of it. But the information itself is still correct. It's still valid, and it's something that you can go in, take a look at, and hopefully, it'll prompt you to make a little bit of a change, even if it's just within your own household. You do that enough times, and eventually everyone's going to be able to do it. So I will leave this here as it is. Sorry for the rant, sorry for the lecture. I'm giving you information that you already know, but it's just when you watch something like that, it gets you riled up and you go, yes, I agree, and another thing, and furthermore. So you start sort of pointing fingers and getting all... Anyway, I'm going to leave this here. So thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, please poke the like button for me. In the meantime, keep yourself warm and fuzzy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.